Welcome to Golden Mastermind Seminars Radio with your host, Jeffery Combs.
Jeffery Combs, President and Founder, Golden Mastermind Seminars Incorporated. It is a very rare rainy day in California where I live. I live in Stockton, California. Seldom rains, and it is actually pouring today, so it is a very unique day. November 1st, 2022. Welcome, everyone. My privilege and pleasure to be here with you, as I said, on November 1st. A very interesting time in our country, if you live in the United States, and those of you who live around the world, welcome to Golden Mastermind Seminars Mindset Facebook Live. Topic for today's Facebook Live is synchronicity and you. So welcome if you are here today. This is the Golden Mastermind Seminars brand. Jared, good to have you here today. Good to see you. Look forward to our next coaching call. Jared. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeffery Combs. I'm here with you. John, good to see you this afternoon. John Lundberg. Jared says good afternoon. And John says also it's good to have you here. Who else do we have here? Sky, good to see you this afternoon. Good to see all of you who are joining here on this in California. It's a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Very rare. I live in Stockton, California. It seldom rains here. Pamela, good to see you this afternoon. John says hello. Sky says hello. Cassie, good to see you this afternoon. For those of you who have ever wondered what a treasure hunter does, we have a treasure hunter on today's Facebook Live, a real treasure hunter that I had the privilege of coaching for multiple years, going on 6 years. Cassiopeia Turcotte, if you would like to follow her, is a real treasure hunter. She goes to Revolutionary War sites and actually hunts for treasures, and also finds rare gems on the East Coast in the New Hampshire, Maine, New York area. She's an exceptional woman. Then she takes her treasures and builds very unique art around her. Cassie, if you have a website, let people know how they can find you. She's been to Fort Ticonderoga in a Revolutionary War site. She's found arrowheads, molded balls from muskets from the Revolutionary War, buttons from soldiers' jackets, a George Washington commemorative pen, and a multitude of other situations, and I highly recommend following Cassie. She's very unique. Eugenie Rose is a yoga expert. Good to see you, Eugenie. Scott, good to see you, my co-collaborator on sobriety consciousness, and Scott, someone who has a tremendous amount of sobriety, who I highly endorse. And Scott, I'm really ready to step into on that Clubhouse Live, go back to the 12 steps and 12 traditions. It is just so awesome. And good to see you, James Pryor, as always, my brother. Good to see you. Congratulations on your successes. And so good to see all of you here. So let's move into the inspirational portion of today's Facebook Live. Many years ago, well over 20 years ago, I bought this book right here. There Are No Accidents. I've owned this book for 25 years at least. So that book is called There Are No Accidents, Synchronicity and the Stories of Our Lives. I started to hear about synchronicity in my 20s, meaningful coincidences. I started to have a much better understanding of what that meant. Diana, good to see you this afternoon. Diana is my new client, crushing it. So Diana, good to see you. Topic for today's Facebook Live is synchronicity. And there are meaningful coincidences, and then there are coincidences, and then the meaningful coincidences that really impact our life can be called synchronicity. I have become very skilled at creating synchronicity on command. So the word is law, and words do not return void. So many people do not understand that their communication style is a byproduct of their low self-esteem, and then they attract to their reality people and situations to fulfill those feelings that keep them in trauma bonds, panic patterns, anxiety, fear, and doubt. These are the words of lack, of disparity, of poverty, and many people live in poverty consciousness. And they also speak that this always happens to me. Well, this always happens to me. There's always a parking space right in front of a restaurant if I'm riding with someone that's driving, or there's always a booth available for me, the booth that I want, or there's always a seat available to me on an airplane in first class. I mean, this becomes how I wired myself. Now, I wasn't born like this. I was born into a situation where there was a lot of lack talk, poverty talk, and other situations early in my life, and worry and stress and all these other situations. As I began to grow into an older child, I started to have visions and dreams, and I know that at night I was traveling, and I would wake up and I would remember some of the places I would gone, and I would write stories and have pictures about them. So I was accessing the quantum field as a child. Those of you doing it as a grown-up, congratulations. Those of you doing it as a child, or if you were the brilliant child syndrome that was misunderstood, there's a possibility that you were an indigo child and now an indigo adult. Those of you who understand what's actually going on in the world, and you don't doubt that, and you're able to see beyond the veil of it, and you've addressed some of your addictive states, and you're letting go of the brain fog that has held you back, and you're now able to meditate, you're able to let go, you're able to be in a relaxed body, you're able to hear what's meant, not said, you're able to have visions and creativity. Well, that means you're accessing your highest power. And in that higher power, you're also able to, on command, attract your reality, people and situations that can fill your highest calling, your highest good. But if you don't feel good enough, this will happen very infrequently, and when it does, you may miss the sign and the clue and miss the brilliance that you access because of your low self-esteem. Synchronicity at a higher level means that you're able to create on command, and situations happen as you begin to change your belief about these unusual experiences. So they're not paranormal. They become normal when you accept them. When you accept that you are able to attract like this, when you're able to, on command, do an altar call, bring to your reality people and situations of influence, affluence, brilliance, creativity, innovation. When you're able to do that, when you're able to think about your grandmother and she calls you, or these situations begin to happen through an occlusal alignment, means they begin to line up for you because you believe, that's your certainty. Now, this isn't miracles, and there's science to it, and the science is letting go. That's the separation from the feelings in the events that shape them. That's what allows you to begin to access the quantum field. That's what allows you to access the field of consciousness. And in the field of consciousness, God, Christ energy, on command, you're able to draw to you people and situations in unique circumstances that are not freak occurrences. They begin to happen in a much more higher law of average. Beth Devine has joined us. Beth is also a very successful business owner, brander, and she understands what synchronicity means as she is witnessing it in her own business. I mean, Beth virtually went from a relationship challenge to moving out, completely out, walking away from everything, starting over as an employee, to now being a 7-figure income earner. And I witnessed it over a 9-year period. She was not an overnight success, but is unequivocally crushing her business, and it's through relationships. So in synchronicity, as you begin to let go of your brokenness, as you begin to let go of not being good enough, as you begin to let go of the trauma that the body holds on to, the body holds on to trauma until you start letting go of it. And very few people ever grasp this or understand the significance and the magnitude of what letting go means. So if you actually let go of alcohol, that's a major victory. Or if you let go of being a food addict or anorexic, or you're bulimic, or if you let go of those outwardly situations, then the next phase of that is to let go of the cause of how that happened. And when you start to let go of cause that created the effect, now you're changing the energy. Now you're changing the way you communicate between the brain and the body, so that the right brain is now connecting to your gut, right down in here. And so when that right brain, your limbic brain, is actually activated, and that right brain is now in activation, and it's now you've moved out of anxiety, fear, and doubt. You're moving into creativity. You're moving into innovation. You're moving into spontaneity. You're able to flow with life. You're able to adapt and adjust. You're no longer holding on to scarcity, lack, and poverty. Your creativity enhances. And it doesn't matter what you have or don't have. What matters is how you feel about who you are, because that's where creativity comes from. It comes from being able to let go of the trauma bonds that were created. So the brain fog that most people live in is not ADD or ADHD. The brain fog that most of us live in is trauma-based, where the amygdala actually enlarges. The hippocampus shrinks. Your hippocampus is memory. And this is why so many people will go, I don't remember. I don't recall that. I don't remember my childhood. I have a bad memory. Well, the memory, it's not that it's bad, it's that it's been suppressed, it's been condensed. And so that's the fight or flight that we hold on to, and we make ourselves small. And then the prefrontal cortex of the brain also shrinks, and that's the ability to discern. And so in discernment, we have challenges deciding, committing, and we don't understand that we're typically addicted to disappointment. And so most of society avoids success and avoids failing, and not sure which one they're actually avoiding because they're overwhelmed by both of it. And that's why they just keep getting ready to get ready in trauma bonds, which is a direct reflection of what we hold on to. So we're so overwhelmed by the possibility of, and there's so much regret about the past, that the two are constantly colliding, creating fight or flight. When you just say to yourself, God, I'm so fucking done with this, I mean, that begins the process of letting go. But it requires rigorous honesty. And I was coaching a woman earlier today on this, that the value, you can't be honest until you're honest. I mean, and when you step into honesty, then it requires you to let go of denial. And then you don't have an excuse. And so the ego wants to hold on to silent suffering because it actually derives pleasure from that. And so what this does is it shuts down your brilliance. And when you shut down your brilliance, then you can't create this right here. Synchronicity. Synchronicity are meaningful alignments. They're not coincidences. They're meaningful realities that virtually you attract through your brilliance. You attract it because you're brilliant. But it would require you to be able to acknowledge that without feeling selfish, without feeling guilty, without getting into the story in your head. Who am I? Well, that would be for you to determine. Who are you? But when you go, well, who am I to succeed? Well, you are you. And until you're able to access your limbic brain, until you're able to live in your right brain more frequently and bring the entire brain together, where you can be analytical and emotional in the same brain. But what many people do is they shut down their right brain, which is their creativity, because they're not sure if they can pull it off. And then they live in their left brain, their analytical egoic mind, and then their communication is, well, that makes sense. Well, that doesn't make sense. Well, that makes sense. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make, our president isn't making sense. Well, it's not about him making sense. It's about you understanding what's behind that president. Because when you understand that, then you can understand what is called truth. And when you understand truth, then there's no denial. Because truth is a higher level of being honest. Because truth, when you're in truth, there's no fucking doubt. I mean, when you're in truth, you are truth. There's nothing to converse about because you're there. And no one can talk you out of truth because you know the truth. You don't even, in truth, there's nothing to argue about. You can just let people be right because you are so convicted in your belief. And in that belief, you will begin to attract to your reality people like this. This explains the phenomenon of they show up. Now, I've had this happen to me numerous times, but specifically, it happened to me in a business. However, the history was always there. Once I moved out of my home and was completely on my own at 18 years old, I went into full-blown addiction. But along with that full-blown addiction, I started to witness what I was capable of. I started to attract exceptional people when I was in my freshman year of college. And so the proof was there, but I didn't know how to filter it at first. I ended up landing a job in a mafia restaurant, in an Italian restaurant, and the people and the influence of that restaurant were amazing. I ended up working in 4- and 5-star restaurants, and people were giving me $100 tips in the 70s and 80s. People were inviting me to parties. I started to meet celebrities. I waited on Joe Namath. I waited on multiple actors and entertainers in the 70s and 80s. I moved to West LA in the same situation, but I could not let go for years, let go of this low self-esteem that I drug around with me. It was like the 50-pound suitcase of not being good enough. It was the grandfather clock strapped to my wrist of the regret of the past, of how the wreckage of the past that I'd made of my life. I'd been a drug addict, drug dealer. I had been a serial cheater, pathological liar, thief, thug. That was just the beginning. So on top of all, in the bottom of all this brilliance was all this low self-esteem, this shame. So that was the contradiction, which kept me in a constant state of brain fog. And so as I started to understand sobriety, rigorous honesty, understanding humility, being humble, asking for forgiveness, gratitude, and all the words that I used to hear but couldn't put them together, as I started to integrate them over a 10-year period, as I started building businesses and just barely making a living in them, I had a breakthrough year. And what happened in my breakthrough year was all the people that I've been looking for showed up at one time. And it wasn't overwhelming to me. I went from $100,000 in credit card debt last year to $500,000 that year. As a byproduct of it was synchronistic how the people begin to show up. I answered a tiny little ad in the USA Today in 1996, and one of the men from that team that I built in 1996 was on the Facebook Live last night, Dr. Mike Thompson. And so it was just like this. It happened on command. Now, if it can happen to me, it can happen to you. And you want to be able to ask yourself this: why not me? Why not now? I mean, you can virtually, in a quantum leap, in synchronicity, on command, attract situations that you're not even aware of what you're capable of. And those who I coach, that you started a book, or you started a new company, or you started a new venture, or you're starting to write content, or you're producing a video, or you're doing your own art, and you're starting to step into your power. It's like you haven't even scratched the surface. I have lived it. I have lived it for 34 years of sobriety, 25 years back-to-back of 7-figure income from the comfort of my home, on command. I mean, I'm from a little town this big, 7,500 people, 2 towns actually, Clarinda, Iowa, and Maryville, Missouri. One 7,500, one 17,000. I grew up in the southwest corner of Iowa and northwest corner of Missouri, close to Omaha and close to Kansas City. I had no mentor. I moved out of my home at 18 years old, put myself through college, started businesses in the 20s, bounced around through addictions, got clean and sober at 31, and then started reinventing myself. And as events start to happen, I started to question, wow, this is a miracle. Wow, this is amazing. But I didn't know how to keep that amazing miracle going. I had so much adrenaline and so much angst at the same time that I would burn myself out and exhaust myself and have to start over to recreate the same situation to fulfill a neurochemical craving of disappointment. I had reached an emotional rock bottom by 1996 while being sober 9 years. And I got to a place where one of my friends offered me a 6-figure job in Malibu, California, and I passed on that job. It's interesting, he just died of a heart attack. So if you know what that means, he just dying of a heart attack 1 week ago Sunday, you will know what that means. That very man who offered me the opportunity to be in business with him, I chose not to do that and answered an ad in the USA Today from a man named T.C. Bradley, who has a program now called God Made Millionaire, and he had just started that business. That little ad like that was the catalyst for what was about to happen the next 2.5 years. And that was synchronistic. That means a meaningful coincidence, an alignment by God, in alignment with Christ consciousness, being one with. It just happened like that. So once again, if it happened to me, it can unequivocally happen to you. However, it's your responsibility to recognize who has shown up for you. But many people don't grasp that. They miss the sign and the clue. They talk themselves out of the connection because it might cost them money. It might cost them time. It might cost them something. And the ego goes, oh no, that might be too difficult. That might be too hard. I'm not sure if I could keep up with that. I'm not sure if I could be responsible. Well, that's what the ego will do to rob you of those opportunities. And opportunities are never lost. They're seized by the few who are emotionally available for it. So when situations happen, it's going to require you to move into a state of not analyzing it, trusting your feelings, and capitalizing on the moment. Whether you have the money, whether you don't have the money, whether you have the resources. I mean, God will supply the resources when you are the answer. But until you can answer to your own calling and you just keep getting ready to get ready, then you will just continue to circle jerk yourself in a circle of nothingness, creating dust rather than blazing your own trail. And when you hit this place called emotional rock bottom, if you haven't hit it yet, well, you don't have to. But if you reach this place where the pain is great enough, then you have paid your dues in that first phase of your life. And you can move into a higher ascended calling called consciousness, where you move into a state of I know, I'm aware, I understand, I don't have to validate, justify, explain myself. I don't have to operate like this. I can let go of my poverty consciousness, my lack, my low self-esteem, a belief that isn't good enough. And when you start to step into that power, then you are you and you are free. Synchronistic events, they are more than a meaningful coincidence. It means by divine design, you're attracting to reality people and situations that show up because of the person you are becoming. Don't overlook your brilliance. It's happening right now for you as you're sitting right here watching this content. And it can happen just like this, on command, OC, just like this, on command. You breathe, you release, and you produce the outcome. You breathe, you release, and you let go. You breathe, you release, and you see the outcome before it happens. You breathe, you release, and you don't have any more yeah buts. There is no yeah but in certainty. When you are in certainty, you have to step across the bridge into responsibility, where you are fully responsible for your outcome. There's no excuses. There's no being a victim. There's no blaming anyone else. That you are completely in rigorous honesty responsible for who you are. That when you are in that state, the tears will flow. Yes, Veronica, the tears will flow. Then you are solely responsible for your outcome. And that is pure sobriety coupled with consciousness. Because when you are in that level of honesty and consciousness, the two come together, that is truth. My name is Jeffery Combs, President and Founder, Golden Mastermind Seminars Incorporated. See those tears? Those tears are still the pain of my past that are still in my present, that I'm letting go of while I'm in my truth and my trust. You have an outstanding afternoon, everyone. Honored to be here with you today. I'm going to go ahead and hit the record button, and it will be available to you. I'll be back here tonight at 9 p.m. Oh, Jennifer, so good to see you. Thank you for the great messages today, Jennifer. I honor you. Jose, good to see you this afternoon. So good to see all of you today. Here's a book I recommend one more time. There Are No Accidents. Hopke, Hopke. Chris Boland, so good to see you. If you're coming on late here, in about 1 minute, I'm going to hit the record button, and it will be available for playback. Those of you I coach, I'm honored to be your coach and friend in the most challenging time in world history. Those of you who have the courage to stand the gaffe of what you're seeing, I commend you. Those of you truthers, truth seekers, I commend you. Tamara, good to see you, Tamara. So good to be your coach, Tamara. I was talking about you today, Tamara, to Brittany. She's so proud of you. So honored to be here with all of you. So have a great afternoon, everyone. I'm going to hit the record button. It will be available for playback. Have a good afternoon.